Welcome to Municipal Affairs. Today we're tackling a challenge that municipalities have been grappling with for many, many years: housing. Now, across the Northwest Territories, finding adequate, affordable, and sustainable housing remains a pressing concern. Municipalities are on the front lines working to address housing shortages, aging infrastructure, and the unique challenges of building in the territory. At the most recent Northwest Territories Association of Communities convention in Yellowknife, we had the opportunity to sit down and speak with Rob Warburton, Yellowknife City Councillor, to discuss the housing challenges municipalities in the Northwest Territories are facing, and more importantly, how they're working towards solutions. What's being done? What support is needed? And how can municipalities drive meaningful change? We will unpack that all right here on Municipal Affairs.
Rob, thank you so much for sitting down with me, and thank you so much for this beautiful community that you have, because I've been driving around. I want to talk housing because it is a challenge across Canada, and I want to learn specifically how it is challenging for municipalities up in the Northwest Territories. So for the city of Yellowknife, what is the biggest obstacle that municipalities are facing, the municipality of the city of Yellowknife facing right now on the housing file?
Well, maybe for folks, still context here. So Yellowknife is like down south. It's like a market community. We have developers and you can buy land. But most places in the north are not like that. Most places are kind of non-market communities. So I'm going to talk about market because it's where I live and what I know. The big barriers in Yellowknife for housing are twofold. One is land access. So unlike down south, you can't just buy land. All the land around us is owned by the territorial government or under Indigenous land claim. So access to land, shockingly, when you look around, we're surrounded by kind of empty, beautiful spaces. Really hard to get them. It takes a long time. It's super bureaucratic for us to get land access. So right now, the city of Yellowknife has no land.
Bureaucratic on the territorial or the
everyone's
city?
side,
Okay.
both. But the territory has to give the city land. So that's the only way we can add more land to our inventory. So the city hasn't had any land for sale for over 2 years.
What?
We have no land available. So because the territory
They won't annex parts of other.
it's just so slow. The process is so slow to get us land. So we have a couple lots which it's called Commissioner's Land. So there's a couple lots that we finally are getting from them, and we should have on our end ready by this summer. We applied for those particular pieces of dirt about 8 years ago. So the process is just so long. So our big barrier to act right now is land, and that's why we're really pushing hard to get that quicker. The other
How
one,
much land does Yellowknife need? I'm going to ask the political question here, Councillor.
All of it. So right now we have the boundary for the city of Yellowknife, right? We own, I'm gonna mess this number up. We own or have control of about 6 or 7% of it. Now, portions of that are under land claims, so those are kind of pulled out of that number. But we don't essentially own almost any of the land in our boundary. So we've asked years ago and repeatedly for the GMT to give us all the land inside the boundary. And it's not just us, this is NWTAC. They've asked for the same thing, because if we're having a hard time as the largest city getting land from the government and bureaucracy, I can't imagine how hard it is for small communities that don't have a planning department to do that. So, and they've said, we all agree, but when you get into the bureaucratic weedy bits, there's a million barriers as to why this isn't happening faster. So, they say housing's a priority up here, and I'm not seeing that in action, right? I'm seeing the bureaucracy being put ahead of the process ahead of actually getting land to market. So,
Are developers knocking on the door?
Yeah, and they're leaving. So my council's part-time. My full-time job is I do development in Yellowknife. It's a tiny market. It's a handful of us that do it. And a lot of the folks, there's one large developer, he's actually moving down to Edmonton because he ran out of land to build on. So we have a development community here, but it is incredibly difficult to build here. Like down south, you'll have a developer who would be the financial arm. They'll hire a general contractor to build the project, and then you'll hire an operator to run it. You can't do that. We're in a hotel right now, which is owned by one of the bigger developers in town, or biggest probably. They do everything. They develop it, they finance it, they run it, and you have to do all those things because it's so expensive to build here. There's not a big, contrary to popular belief, there's not a big pot of money you sit on when you're finished. So combine the land access with the financial reality, it's really hard to build here. And it's we're really squeezed tight. Yeah.
Infrastructure is a big priority when you come with that has to come with housing as well. Do you believe that the city of Yellowknife is set up for potential boom and growth if the territorial government comes to the table tomorrow and says, we're going to give you the land that you want? Do you have the infrastructure in place? Because they're probably looking at you saying, okay, if you don't, you need to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And we need to put the horse before the cart, and you're trying to put the cart before the horse. You want the land for the development, but does your infrastructure currently have the capacity to add on more potential growth to it?
That's a yes and no. So I've learned a long time ago, like, don't wait on them for anything. So while we're pushing that politically to get that land, we're doing what we can right now. So we have the ability to infill and densify our city, right? I know it's all kind of the thing.
This is inside baseball, right?
Yeah, it's, but we control that. So that's all zoning and bylaws and those kind of things. So our focus has been the last couple of years in council is infill, getting things that we do control to market and kind of increasing the ability for folks to build on land that exists already. We took that housing accelerator fund money from the feds to do some work. In my opinion, it's still not fast enough, but we're getting there. Infrastructure-wise, like, the North infrastructure ages much faster, is my impression, than down south. So I think we're like the canary in the coal mine. So we had a lift station, which is just like just existing infrastructure. We're kind of tapped out. Our downtown is very dense, and it's getting denser, so we need to upgrade that lift station. Our original budget was $3 or $4 million pre-COVID. We did a tender last summer for $15 million. The cheapest came back at $42 million. So this is just to replace existing stuff. Our submarine water line originally was in the $35 million stage. It's at $107 million, right? So at this point, it's like, what am I not doing, right? We're so tiny. We can't afford this stuff. No one has any debt room left. Territory's out of debt room. We're getting pretty close. So, folks keep talking about expansion and more facilities, and I think the next 10 years, it's going to be really hard for us financially just to keep your toilet flushing and your tap running. So like, that's where our focus has got to be, like this constant fight with the territory for land and things. Like, we have three choices as a city, right? So we can either cut services, either crank up your taxes, or we can build more stuff to increase tax base. I know which one I would like to pick. I would like to build more housing and more businesses. But to do that, we need to really kind of expedite that process. Yeah.
I'm going to ask a very political question.
Absolutely.
I think you're ready for it. Do you think the territorial government, GNWT, is listening?
I think they're...
Are you being heard?
I don't think so. So the political arm of the GNWT definitely hears what we're saying.
That's the MLAs.
Yeah. The cabinet MLAs, yeah, like, they're very alive to the fact that we need more land. But it seems like between them and when it comes to the bureaucracy and the process to get us things, there's some disconnect, right? We see there's a housing crisis, but then no one in that process is really acting like it. So there's no sense of urgency, right? There's when it takes 8 years to get a few pieces of land transferred, I guess I know we're more complicated in most places. You got commissioner's land, you got federal stuff, you got indigenous land claims. So it is not straightforward. I get that, but nothing takes 8 years. Like, that's just, you don't care. It's just you're pushing paper at that point. So one of the things that I often hear from municipal leaders, whether it be here in the Northwest Territories or across Canada, is if you have a problem, municipal leaders tell their residents, you have a problem, come to me with a solution. Because let's work on a solution together. So what's the solution? Is it just open up more land and that's it? Or is there X, Y, and Z that the territorial government, the federal government, and the cities, the municipalities can be doing together to fix this issue, so we're not having the same conversation at the 60th anniversary at NWATC? Yeah, I think it's everything all at once. So, the feds... they did that half money. There's different avenues. They had a rapid housing initiative, which was really successful for us up here. Imagine that, when you actually give the money directly to the people that need it, and you give them the power to deploy it rapidly, the world doesn't implode, and we house people really fast, right? We bought apartment buildings, nonprofits bought apartment buildings with that money. Like, it was very quick, and the world didn't end. So I think that is a shining example of how to deploy your capital. That because they removed the bureaucracy and the bullshit is what they did. They just said, here's money, city. You form a committee and you decide how you want to spend this money. That went really, really well. But then you had premiers after that came out saying, well, it should go through the provinces and territories. It's control, right? The world didn't end because we got to solve our own problems. So federally, that's a good one. Territory, I think there needs to be a real big focus on the legislative barriers that are in the way. They're never cutting us a check. They're broke as we are. So what can they do to legislatively adjust things to get out of the way, right? Make that streamlined and fast. That's within their control. And then for us, it is the things we control is like zoning and bylaws and permitting timelines. Like we control these things. So for us, my big push has been faster. Like when developers are leaving and people don't invest their money here because it takes too long, and it's not an indication of staff. They work so hard and they're trying so hard. But if your customer is saying it's too slow, it's too slow. So the only way we can kind of dig out of this, I think, for a housing perspective and for like tax base, is to build more stuff and rapidly. And you need to attract those people to do that. Right now, I don't think we're doing like we're not. We say we're open for business, but it doesn't. The feedback I'm getting is that we're not.
So there's one part of the equation that we have not talked about yet, and that's the people. Because some people have come to, and some residents of Yellowknife or some residents of the Northwest Territories have come to these municipalities because they want a different type of lifestyle. They don't want to see that growth. We know the NIMBYism is alive and well in Canada, and you probably see it here in Yellowknife as well. Yeah. How do you combat that when you're trying to grow your community as well? Because people might like the way that Yellowknife is, or are people of Yellowknife and the people of the Northwest Territories content knowing that they need to grow your community so that way maybe they can get an extra few dollars off their property taxes this year?
Like we are not special. Like everywhere else, we have our very strong and loud NIMBYs.
Yeah.
So the folks, like, change is hard.
I'm glad that you said that because now I can go away and say that not every territory and province in this country is the exact same.
Yeah, they exist everywhere, right? And this is where this is political will, right?
So do you have it?
I think this particular council does for sure. We have pushed back against a number of things already. We just did a community plan amendment up here. We have to have a community plan which is approved by the territory. Yeah. We just amended that ourselves, so we didn't ask staff to do a bunch of work. We saw problems around a housing issue and some economic development issues, and we just made the shift and did it. And that, I heard some really negative feedback from folks. Just like everywhere else, developers are evil. But yeah, the need to just piss people off. It's like, what is community good, right? The community needs housing, community needs tax base. And is that going to make everybody happy? No, of course it's not. But not losing the forest for the trees here. A dozen people at a city council meeting yelling at you or giving you gears because you're building an apartment building beside them. That's not the majority of the 20,000 people in the city, nor is it people that have nowhere to live. So what's more important, housing or pleasing people, or unfortunately getting reelected? I couldn't care less. And that's very helpful. Right? Yeah.
Do you get a sense that you can fix this issue in your term in office?
I think we can move the needle. We are. Policy-wise, I think these last 2 years are going to be really interesting because this is kind of, you spent the first, year, 2 year term kind of figuring out how things work. You always think you know how it works, and then you get into the weedy bits, and you don't really do. But now I'm like this. Didn't get a lot of media coverage, but we did that community plan amendment. That was a massive shift in policy, because before we'd be ask staff to do a ton of work, we'd do a lot of background work, we'd take months and months and months. Whereas this, the mayor brought it forward, we just said yes or no, and we just told staff to amend something with no analysis, because we're confident that this was needed. So more stuff like that, where we're very direct and pointed and specific. I think, we're getting there. Yeah.
Final word, what does the future of Yellowknife look like with a potential boom in housing?
I think it's our biggest barrier for everything. I know we got 3 large mines, which are a large part of our GDP. I know they're winding down. I fully suspect government austerity is on the horizon here with feds and territory. Everyone's broke. But I think our big holdback for our personal economic development is housing. So I think if we unleash that, I think we're going to have more activity here than people kind of realize. I'm not all roses, and I'm not ignorant to the fact the economy is going to be hard to go here next few years. But things we control is housing, and that's our biggest revenue source as a city. So, I'm here, my life savings are in this city, I'm not going anywhere, and I don't do that naively. So I think long term, there's a good place to live. Yeah.
Councillor, much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into the world of Northwest Territories municipal politics. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform or here on YouTube if you're watching us, and leave us a review if possible. It helps us get the word out. And to learn more about the people and the communities that we feature on this show and our other shows, the Political Trenches Local Government at Work or the Cross Border Interviews, head over to the Cross Border Interviews website today at crossborderinterviews.ca. Also, if you can, share this episode with your friends, your family, and even your community, and help get the word out for us. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs shortly. Till then, everyone.